Welcome to the lecture on functions. So if you go to the materials and variable and constants, go to functions folder. This is a quick intro, so I'll not go details into functions. So there is a separate section on functions where we'll deep down into function and understand different types of function and how to write functions. Because we'll be using some of the examples to show variable concept and constant concept using functions. So we are doing a quick intro on it. So if you go to the functions folder, there's a derivable here and then you have the logical flow file. Open this up. So let's open logical flow and the derivables file. Okay, so let's verify this. So part of this deliverable, we'll create 3 files. The first one will define a function and call it. Second, we'll understand how the duplicate functions will work. And third one, we'll see the sequence of the functions. Okay, so we'll quickly run through the functions concept. Again, this is a quick intro. When you go to function section, we're going to deep down into function and understand all the details of the functions. Okay, so let's quickly write about functions. So if you're hearing functions for the first time, it's also called as methods. If you have a piece of code which is duplicated in your program, you create it as a function and you call it multiple times. Okay, so it helps us reduce your number of lines in the code. So let's do a sample one and let's define a function. To define a function, you have to use the keyword called function, okay, followed by a function name. Let's say you're defining an add function, so you can say add as a function name, then you open and close the parenthesis. Okay, then you create the block of the function. So in this block all your function code will lies, and after the block the function will be completed. So here we will try to define the function body. Okay, so this is called as function declaration and this is called as function body. So whatever you will write here will be executed when you call this function. So I'll show you how to call a function as well. So let's define a variable first, value, then we'll do some total plus, because there is an addition, so we are adding 2 variables. Anyway, we are not passing it, we're just creating it here and then returning it to the total, and then we're going to print it here itself. Okay, so how to call this function? To call this function, you just have to say the name of the function and open and close parenthesis. Okay, this is basically called as calling the function. Okay, so let's verify this one. Okay, you get the 30. This basically the function is calling the add method. Okay, so let's go ahead and create another file. Copy this. Okay, so I'm going to create sample 2. Here I'm going to try to duplicate the function and see what happens. Okay, so we define a function add again and we'll say duplicate function. I just want to show you what happens if you create a duplicate function. Okay, obviously it error out, so you cannot have same function name twice defined in the same file. Okay, that's an example for you to remember. So let's create one more file, and this time we will see the sequence of the function. So copy this, paste it here, and I'm going to comment this out. So what I want to do, I want to call a function first. Let's say welcome message. Okay, and then I want to define it. Okay, so even though you define the sequence as first you call the function, then you define the function, let's see what happens, whether it can find that function or not. Right, so let's execute this, and it has no problem executing. So functions sequence doesn't really matter, right? You write it on top, you write it on bottom, you call it first, then you define it, or anyway it's fine. So even though you're defining the function after you're calling, it's able to call that function. Okay, and then you cannot have duplicate names, means if you have same function name twice, it'll error out. How to call a function? You have to add the function name, that's the add function name, and then you have to add the parenthesis. To define a function, you have to use a keyword called function, the function name, two parentheses, and the block. Okay, so that's all about the function. I hope it's very clear. So we're going to use functions going forward as of now, and we'll try to use some concepts to define variables. Okay, so that's all for this lecture. I'll see you in the next one.